Hey everyone, I am MSK, aka Master Swag King, coming at you guys today with another video. And if you guys are returning viewers or new viewers, then please consider subscribing to the channel if you have not already. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it and comment down below. Also, make sure you guys hit the notification bell. That way, you guys can get notified on whenever I upload a brand new video. And in today's video, we are going to be doing a comic book review on Dean Cain, All-American Lawman, Volume 1, Dangerous Freedom. So, Dean Cain, All-American Lawman, Volume 1, Dangerous Freedom is from Big Man Comics, which is ran by Gabe El-Taib, a person whom I've met twice in real life. I first met him in the 2024 Las Vegas Geeks and Gamers and FNT meetup earlier this year. And then he had a special little mini event for himself for his birthday a few months ago. And then I went to San Diego to meet him once again. And obviously, we've talked on social media before. He was on a podcast episode with me, but it didn't last the minimum length that I like for the show. So I just cut it out. And then I just uploaded it as a regular video. Great conversation there in that video on obviously my main channel, because you guys are watching this video on my comic book channel. I would recommend going to my main channel and watching that so you guys can really get into the mindset and how he does work for his comic books, actually. So basically, long story short, Gabe did not like the way that mainstream media was headed when he was working for DC Comics, but he did work for like every big title you can possibly think of. So then Dean Cain, who obviously was a celebrity, most famously known for playing Superman and Lois and Clark, My Adventures with Superman, contacted him. They made a collaboration. And then, long story short, this ended up coming into fruition. And when I first laid eyes on just this cover, I knew I was going to buy the book. Now, before we get into actually reviewing the book, as you guys know, the reason why it took us a little bit more longer to get to this review was because I ordered cover A, right? And then that package actually got lost in the mail. So when I went to San Diego, I had asked Gabe, hey, can I get a replacement book? And he actually did give me a replacement book. And then when I did one of my comic book hauls that you guys will eventually see, that day when they dropped my mail off, the package apparently was found and they had already emailed me about it. And then they sent it with that, line of mail that I got. So I ended up getting the cover that I ordered, actually. And so I want to say thank you to Gabe, obviously, for replacing the book that I now end up having. Thank you, man. You're awesome for that. Great customer service. And you can also still pick up Dean Cain, All-American Lawman, Volume 1, Dangerous Freedom on bigmancomics.com. And he also has 4 new titles coming out in 2025. Now, will he get all 4 of those books out in 2025? That's going to be a task in and of itself. But if I always say this for any of the other indie comic creators out there doing your own thing, if you just put your mind to it and you get the work done, it will happen. So I'll just ask this for Professor Savage Jack. Did you want to say any early thoughts on the book before we start covering the art, story, pacing, and everything?
Yeah, absolutely. Great cover, fun. Not indicative of what's inside, but it's a good just kind of rendition of what the character is. I like the back cover too. Just this looks
it's
good.
really good. Yeah.
This is what do you want to call this?
So he says it's a collaboration of James Bond and Indiana Jones if they had a love child.
Yes, I can see that. What I get from this is, like, if you want to talk about vibe, I get OG Nightwing from this.
Yeah.
Chuck Dixon's first go around putting Nightwing out. That's the kind of fun that it is. Because that's what it was. That was the difference in dynamic between Dick Grayson and Bruce Wayne, and why they grew apart, why they wrote them growing apart, and how they wrote the characters. And when Nightwing moved on to Bloodhaven and had his own thing, he had this talk of the walk vibe, like he was a badass, and he knew he was a badass. He knew he was like hot shit. He knew he was like the best looking dude around, and he knew he could like kick every villain's ass. He was your quintessential like young stud badass dude that like guys wanted to be. Now, in this one, Dean Cain isn't exactly portrayed as being young. He's a father and everything else, but the vibe, like Nightwing vibe. Like I there's no way Gabe couldn't see that. Like this is a different vibe where you've got this very kind of not necessarily happy, but like confident in a positive light, like good guy. Straight up good guy. No shades of gray or bullshit. Just a good guy doing good things. And that's what Nightwing was, dude. He showed up to Bloodhaven where nobody was doing anything about the crime there. And he was just like this quintessential good dude doing good shit.
I think that's because I remember doing that conversation I had with him for that one video I was talking to him for a one-on-one. And I remember he said that he wanted to make comic books in the vein of making people happy, you know, not like in the vein of like, well, this guy's a good guy, but he does kind of like do heroin and he kind of beats up his wife. Is that really a good guy? It's like, well, no, right? So that is the spirit throughout the book, I'll say. And I will say this. There are a few criticisms here and there that I do have for it. One, I will say this, and this is on like the nitpicky scale, so I'll admit that straight out the gate, okay? So toward the end of the book, I'll just be honest here, you don't really, okay, so outside of this right here, this is the very end of the book, all this right here. So this stuff should be in the front, all of that. All the stuff about like Dean and Gabe and Acheon's awards and achievements. Nothing wrong with bragging about that. I'm fine with that. I'm cool with bragging.
Leave those in the back. That's fine to stay in the back for sure. Yeah.
But if you wanted to kind of like put an ad for more stuff you have coming up, I would have just threw that in the front. And toward the end of the book, you have these character profiles of obviously of Chris Tanaka and Veronica and Ming. Now, I don't mind that too much, but I could just deal without it. Honestly, I don't really know why that's there, because later on you could just have a character profile book describing what the universe is anyway, and that would do the characters and villains more justice. Obviously, I'd be honest, I just don't know what this is for if you actually read the book, because to get to that point, you'd actually have to have read the story to get to those characters.
I think it's kind of a little bit of just maybe defining something. I'm not sure, but also I don't think like when he did this, he didn't know it was going to be a success. He didn't know that this was going to move the numbers that it did and do well. So they just kind of, made a book. And like, I didn't even read the profiles.
They're basically just what we learn about the characters early on. Like we learned that, because the stuff is visually shown. And that's what's really awesome about the characters or the backstories later on when we talk about the story. It's all visually shown, and the dialogue perfectly illustrates who's talking, who goes to where, or the last
characters you're dealing with, what their motivations are.
This last page, I would say, should be ads for your other comics coming up, because like guys, I'll be honest here, I'm not the guy that's interested in like, oh, I drew my art. I don't care. I'll be honest here, it doesn't move the needle for me. Other people it might, and that's fair. Different strokes for different folks, but I do believe at the end of indie books or whatever, because I get this same criticism to Eric and what's the other guy that does Grok, the Remnant books. Having ads to let people know what's coming up is very important, honestly, because you bought this for the first time, you're like, damn, this is awesome. Okay, where's more? I don't know if more is coming. So you don't know if you want to get more. The end of the book should be an advertisement to get you to the next part. But other than that, that's just the only real nitpick that I have. Is kind of like better ad placements, better advertising of what's coming next in the next books, actually. All right, so let's start this off. So overall, this book, you could kind of consider it very wordy. There was a lot of dialogue here. A shitload.
There was a bit, but like, there was so much of it that was told by story. Like you look at pages like this.
Yeah.
You're going to see the dialogue pretty light here in this interaction. Like the thing about the dialogue was that it was scene dependent. So like, you want to know where you got a lot of dialogue. And I picked this up earlier was, let's see here. So you've got the scene like here. Let me go here. You got this where, he's schmoozing up, rizzing the lady up.
Yeah. So just like me,
getting after her. Yeah. Of course. That happens all the time. Every time a lady comes on with MSK, it's Riz.
It's crazy. She was at a bar and he was raising her up. So I was like, yeah, it's coming back to me.
Exactly.
Wait a minute. My story didn't pan out that way.
That's where all the dialogue, that's where you get you get a lot more dialogue when you've got these tight scenes where you've got people close together having like personal conversation and shit. And then when you get into, let's say, like here, you've got the action scene, you know, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 balloons on the top panel, then 1 balloon, 2 balloons, 3 balloons, 2 balloons for dialogue. You got an action scene there. It's good. It's smooth. He's not saying more than he needs to. You don't have it going off the side of it. Then you've got this scene in the church. They're in the what is it, the vestibule or whatever with the preacher. They're having a conversation. They're talking. There's that, and then like let's see here. You get into this page here. They're fighting. Is there a ton of dialogue? Nah. It's where the dialogue is paced and put in the proper places, and it's isn't excessive.
Also, the dialogue is very fun. It keeps you interested. The problem with Yaira that I bring up when it comes to a lot of dialogue like this book has, the dialogue is in and out to keep your interest in Yaira. So I was like, man, if we read a book like this and the dialogue is like that's going to be a slog to get through. You know, even if the rest of it's fine, the dialogue, the reason why the dialogue is important, guys, for comics, because that's what's keeping your interest, because that's the characters interacting.
Well, that's what's moving. It moves. It doesn't move the story along. It sets the pace for the movie.
Yeah.
Or for the comic.
Yeah.
I mean, the plot is what everything else is kind of centered around. Up here, you've got your dialogue that's helping it move, and then you've got action helping it transition and move. Sometimes, you know, you're going to have portions of the story told in just the artwork itself, and that's great. You know, competent artists with a competent writer are very capable of doing that, and they do it very well.
Right.
I had a good, actually, Ghost of the Badlands is a great example of that. George Alexopoulos and Razorfist, both themselves competent in what they do together. Fantastic pacing, fantastic telling of a story through the artwork, where you don't necessarily need to have everything poured out in dialogue. And the same in here. I mean, this is just a straight up, it's an action movie. You're looking at, this is like a PG-13 action movie in the 90s. You know, you've got your gunfights, you've got your everything else. You don't have the gratuitous fucking that every action movie
and you
has
know,
to have
from my
these
conversation
days because reasons.
You know, from my conversation with Gabe, he was very he didn't like the whole like grotesqueness of certain characters like Deadpool. He said he really didn't like that. Yeah, didn't like the R-rated booby thing.
That was absolutely not a kids movie. I know that, like, which is annoying because it's a superhero thing, so some people don't fucking get it and they take their kids to like Deadpool and Wolverine. But there are aspects of it that are funny and silly that kids like there's parts of the opening sequence that are with this fucking songs and shit. But there's also a lot of funny videos that Ryan Reynolds did for like Instagram promoting the movie, like silly dances and singing and shit that like my wife was watching and my son was watching, and he was laughing at because it was silly, but they were like Instagram friendly ads and promotions and shit. And it's like, yeah, no, son, that's not one for you to watch.
So the way he described it as being basically James Bond meets Indiana Jones. Now, keep in mind, guys, I've never seen an Indiana Jones movie my entire life, but I have seen one James Bond movie, and I've seen Casino Royale. That might be one of the best movies I've ever seen. That movie is fucking awesome. So I would describe this basically as Casino Royale of a certain level. So I know a lot of people are going to be confused by the story here. The story is actually not confusing at all. The way the story is laid out is mostly like an action movie. So the book starts off, big giant action scene, right? He's running from the main villain of the book, and his name is Archibald Ming. Okay, so basically, long story short, Archibald Ming is a drug lord who runs a certain part of Mexico so badly to the point where people cannot have guns. He has his hands in the police, okay? So he controls what the police do. Then he has an operation where he can basically transport drugs, fentanyl, and other things back, like transporting other gang members to certain sides of California, obviously, money laundering, you name it. This guy's in every bad thing you can think of, okay? So, and then obviously the book opens with Chris Tanaka, who is the, hero of the book, running from Ming. He has this drive on there, and apparently if Ming wants to get this drive, is because later on in the book it's revealed this has a lot of his information on there and his bank records, all that stuff, that if they got out there, then it would expose the entire operation, who's got their hands tied in what, obviously. So he escapes Ming. Then later on we see that he's at his son's volleyball game, and then later on it's revealed that his sister, which is obviously his son's aunt, didn't pick the son up. And he's like, wait a minute, I know your auntie would get you. Kind of find out, Ming has captured her. He has to deliver the drive to Ming in 4 days, or he essentially will just slit her throat. Okay, that's it. So also throughout the book, Ming has his underlings go after Chris at various points in the book, and they fight constantly. There is one part where I will say there's one line of bullshit that is in the book. This dude straight up stabs him in the wrist. And obviously it's pulled out. But it's like, wait, how does your arm work? If you stabbed in the wrist with a knife as a normal human, your wrist would be like destroyed, honestly. But then again, this is the comic book, so suspension of disbelief and everything. I thought that was the only thing. I was like, wait a minute, this guy got his wrist stabbed with a knife that deep. That is pretty yikes. So later on after that, okay, so there's another character that appears named Veronica. Okay, so Veronica has ties to Ming. They used to date, and it's also visually shown in the book that they used to date, and obviously he was a different person before he met her, which is also visually shown in the book. And also throughout the book, there is a mini little scene that sets up Dean Cain, All-American Lawman Volume 2 with the guy in Hong Kong. So the woman named Veronica obviously sings at this club. They used to date at one point. He was the guy where basically later on he started beating her. He started treating her like shit. She thought she left him. Later on, it's revealed that any boyfriend she had gets killed by him. So this villain is just straight up actually just a piece of shit, guys. Terrible dude. And I really like that, because when a villain is very, very bad in a very just dictatorship role, that needs to be a consistent thing throughout the book, that this character's presence is a thing. The only thing that I would criticize about Ming as a villain is that I feel like he never really actually got that much involved within the story in a more of an action role outside of like the first part of the book and the end. It feels like toward the middle part, he kind of just let his underlings do the villain work. The problem with that is that we know that most villains, like if these guys keep failing, and he knows they keep failing, you got to go just do it yourself, Oh yeah. And also throughout the book, there's this really awesome part where they're in a helicopter. It crashes with Veronica and him. She gets captured, and then he meets this Mexican family where the parents, pretty much it's implied that the parents got killed by Ming, and then they give him this equipment to go and later on take down Ming. It was a really fun action book. Like if you were a guy that loves action movies where the tension's there, the dialogue is there, the pacing there, and it feels like everything just consistently builds up toward the very end of the book, right? Now, the other thing that I would really compliment is the main character himself felt flawed, but you rooted for the character throughout the entire book. You felt like even when he was in a bad situation, he still made the most out of it. And never really started doubting himself. I didn't particularly care for the main female lead. I don't think she was that interesting, if I'm being completely honest here. I felt like she was just oddly trying to play a stronger female role while also not being like all much for that. I just didn't care for Veronica's character really much at all. Like, to be fair, you could probably honestly remove her from the book and nothing would really change, but I get it. These kind of stories have love interest because the guy saves the day, gets the girl, which just happened toward the end of the book. He's the guy that saves the day and gets the girl, obviously. The only thing also that I would say is there's not particularly any like art that stands out, kind of like when we read Gooding the Polymath. There wasn't really like a specific art page that stood out. There was one where he knocked the guy's teeth out with a bat. I feel like that was kind
Yeah,
of
that
cool when
was
they try to
good.
ambush him, Other than that, I didn't really. The art's not bad. The art is actually really, really good. But there wasn't outside of that
Yeah.
page. It wasn't really like any standout art. This book basically reads as an action movie where the main character has to go to another place, leaves his kid there. One of the leading characters from the organization sets them up to get stuff throughout the book. Now, to be fair, it is kind of very easily known that the guy that was apprehensive with him in, I guess, it was the organization he was working for. Well, it turns out that guy was also in Ming's pocket as well, But that happens in these kind of action movies / books. Like, that's not a surprise at all, I also felt like every scene of the book elevated it a lot more each time. So when they're in a hotel, well, you kind of know that the bad guys are going to get them, right? When they're at a point where they need to get the helicopter, you feel like the bad guys are on the trail. The tension in the book is really, 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 really good for the most part. Everything in the book just kept elevating and elevating and elevating and elevating to the point where, in that part right there, he gets the weapons from that Mexican family. And then later on, they go into that part where they get Ming, his name Ming? Yes. Ming gets the drive finally, and then they have the final showdown. And then what's crazy is Veronica ends up killing Ming, actually. Yeah. Veronica ends up killing him, and then he gets the girl. She actually comes back to live with them, and earlier, like I said, it's revealed that the guy that he was working for, one of them was also in Ming's back pocket, which would, not be surprising at all. And then later on, the cameo part of who trained Ming. So this guy right here, as you see, he's the guy that taught Ming everything he knew. And this was set up earlier in the book. And then this sets up, Dean Cain, All-American Lawman, Volume 2, Hong Kong edition. That's what they're calling it. So, yeah, those are my thoughts consistently. That guy was basically discount Red Hood with a sword. I was like, why is he wearing Red Hood's helmet?
He's disfigured in some way, so he was hiding his particular looks there. I don't know exactly what it was.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed the book. I think the villain is great. I think the pacing is great. The story is great. Yep. The dialogue is there. If like this doesn't have a lot of bloodsheds, if you're looking for an action with a lot of blood in it, or you're looking for like an action comic with that, this doesn't really have that. Honestly, the only
you get about this here basically.
Yeah, the only bloodiest scene is that one, and when he gets his back slashed a little bit, that's about it. Yeah. Other than that, there's not really a lot of gratuitous blood here.
That's why I said this reads very much like a PG-13 action film from the 90s. They knew how to pace it. They knew how to tell a story. This is your 3-act setup, man.
Yeah.
You've got the 3 acts here. Let me see. I try to always remember how the 3-act format goes.
Oh, another thing I forgot to mention. The other thing I forgot to mention was that when they were in Mexico, the setting of Mexico really played into the book as well. You had Hispanic or Spanish dialogue consistently throughout the book with people who were talking. Like there was the part that he needs to go undercover because the police are after him because that one guy who was a church father got shot up because they found out that Chris Tanaka was there. Just awesome. Guys, the tension and the dialogue and the setting and the stakes were just amazing. It was really good.
Well, yeah, it went exactly how you would expect. You had Act 1, the setup, and Act 1. So, let's go in here. And they did set up now. I picked up on this, but I always pick up on this shit. There was a twist in the book, like you had mentioned. You got this twist, which you get. It was a 90s trope, man. In your Nick Cage action film or whatever it was, you're gonna have this trope. You're gonna have that as the twist at the end is somebody there isn't who you thought it was gonna be, but you just there was a point in here where I knew this motherfucker was up to something, like it was like, so seeing him at the end wasn't a huge surprise for me, but I know some people, like, they were like, oh shit, like he really was an asshole. And I was like, well, yeah, I always pick up on that stuff, but that's because I've read so fucking much. I've watched, I'm old. I see this shit coming, but it doesn't mean that I don't appreciate it. It's fine. It was there. This dude, this is a popcorn comic book, like Con Air was a popcorn movie.
Yeah.
Not quite the same kind of things, but they're not dissimilar either. You had a strong father character doing some shit he didn't necessarily want to have to do to get back to his kid, so he had to go out and do this. But
also, it's not overly religious either,
No, he does bring up God and he mentions God, but he realizes that there's
it's
an
not too
audience out
heavy-handed.
there beyond what it exactly is. So then you got all that set up in Act 1, the first part of the book, issues 1 and 2. Then you got the confrontation. So this is when he's in Mexico, shit's going down. He's running into the bad guys. They're burning down the church. They're fucking going, So you got the confrontation, everything sets up, boom, boom. You get to the end of the book. You get, he's where he ended up with the Mexican family after, where was it at? I got to go back. It's been a minute since I've read the book, actually. But let's see. He ended up getting with them when he fell off the cliff. Oh,
No,
yeah,
it was
after the helicopter crash. Yes,
Yeah,
after the
she
helicopter
got
crash, he
captured.
was looking for, he went to go look for help or gas or something.
Yeah.
And shit went down. And yeah, dude, then you get into not necessarily the resolution, the confrontation builds up. You get there, like the climax is where begins, where he's putting on the makeup and shit's about to go down.
Yeah,
That's
villain gets the item they were looking for the entire
exactly.
time.
That's your end of issue 5 right there. Boom. Then issue 6, you're rolling in, the fight goes down, and you've got the wrap up afterwards. You get the turnaround. You find out that the guy that he worked with was actually a bad guy. The guy
it
who was
actually
kind of
makes
an
more
asshole.
sense now because the guy that basically he was working with, not the guy with the yellow mustache, not the other guy, it would make sense how Ming would get his sister because he was obviously he would also have that information to give him. Yeah.
I also like at the end that she's kind of like, apparently the hookup must have gone well because she followed him home. So
yeah,
took that booty with him. But dude, it was, the story was paced perfectly for what it needed to be. You could, dude, you don't need more than this can be a quick read if you want. Like, chew through it, man. You can sit down and eat it up and move through it. Is there a lot of dialogue in some scenes? Yes, but there's a lot of dialogue in some scenes in John Wick, and then it goes to action. Boom, it moves over. That's just the way. That's the way it's paced. Like this could be. I think I'd said this a while ago. This would be a fun animated film or something like that. I mean, he could even make this into a movie. Like if Dean Cain could still pull the acting off, guy still looks like jacked. So
no, yeah. If this was ever like an animated movie, that would be amazing.
That'd be bomb, dude. That'd be so good, dude.
To be fair, would that ever happen? Probably not, because that's a lot of money.
It's hella expensive.
Yeah,
you got to get so many Koreans.
Overall, you got to get Mexicans for this one. They were speaking some taco language in this a lot.
No, I'm just talking about the animation.
And they sure. I have to imagine that the volume 2, that's for anime. They got to go to Wong Ching Chong Land.
Oh yeah, the Bangkok one. I'm looking forward to it. Like, was this the greatest, most deep fucking story that I've read this year ever? Was this is this Batman Hush? Is this Long Halloween, Year One, whatever?
Oh no. Nothing was trying to be though. Yeah.
No, it doesn't need to be. That's the thing. Comic books can just be fucking comics, dude. This is 1980s fucking G.I. Joe, explosions, fun, action, strong men doing, positive masculinity, positive fatherhood. Like all of this stuff came out of this book. This is why it was my jam. Like this is definitely in my top 5 things I read all year, dude.
Persevering I would say persevering through adversity. That's a big portion of the book. There
Yeah.
was the part, if you are religious, it's the part in the Bible where you're supposed to basically just overcome and do better and get called to do something kind of thing. I forgot the actual line of dialogue, but it's there, you know, where you have to basically, if you're scared, you still got to go do what you need to got to do. And you know, when they got to Mexico in the book, and basically in Act 2, the setting of Mexico that they set up was really awesome. You really got this feeling of this guy really is the cartel. You know, that's the thing when it comes to a villain. It's like Frieza in Dragon Ball. Like you can feel Frieza's influence throughout the show when Frieza's first like the main villain, right? That's what it felt like here with Ming, where you feel like his presence is there in the book even when he's not there, you know? And ultimately, him being super cocky and unprepared in most situations led him to be killed. You know, I feel like it only made sense if she killed him. Now, to be fair, because that kind of was a setup thing, because he tortured her and he did basically beat her up and treat her like shit. I wouldn't have minded if he killed him, but you know, her getting the revenge is fine. You know, he gets happy ending with the girl. Do I think she might be the lead for the second book? I don't know. To be fair, I don't think her character's all that interesting, honestly. You could just do without her the next time.
It was good to have a female protagonist, kind of a foil off him, kind of showing him
a
little and a little bit of it added gravitas to his manly stature, picking up this beautiful woman, but not only that, saving the woman. What I liked, she got her revenge at the end. Great stuff. Was she a Mary Sue? No. Like she stole, you could say, oh, she stole his thunder because she defeated the bad guy. It's like, well, like, no, he already kicked her ass and she took him out, and that's fine. There was never a Mary Sue moment here. There's never a moment where she like, I'm a strong, independent woman. I don't need you. I'm gonna go wander down this hallway and get murdered and raped.
They did the part of women can't drive in the book. She couldn't drive a helicopter. Women can't drive. Also, another thing. Great. I'll bring up another critique that I did have. So he's supposed to be this like really intelligent, not like intelligent, I would say. That's not exactly hinted. He's supposed to be this like really strong spy. You can tell he's very muscular. In the book, you never really get to see him like actually fight properly. It's really fast. It's just, and it really gets, and it cuts very quick. Yeah. In the next book, I would like to see more fighting style from him, you know? You didn't really get to see like him fight much, despite there was action there with him, just a little bit more dynamic about how he's going to hit someone, how he's going to kick someone, how he gets out of a situation. You know, I would have preferred that, you know, but overall, great book. Honestly, really enjoyed reading it. I mean, when I was reading it, you know, to be fair, the pacing is a little slow at the beginning, you know, and not based off the first action part. The first action part is fine, but it gets to that little middle half before it gets to the second act when they're in Mexico. So the pacing can be only slow at certain points, which is, it's okay. That happens in every book. But overall, the pacing is great. Outside of certain parts, the writing is great. The story's there. The heroes are awesome. Outside of Veronica, I think she's not that good at all. The villain is great. The story structure is there. The feeling, the setting of Mexico is there. Truly feels like a, you know, I would say 90s action movie mixed with, like, I guess you could say James Bond, Rambo, examples there. Maybe John Wick, you could say, you know, but I would say John Wick meets James Bond is what this is. But I would say this, if you are interested in that genre of movies, this is the comic book for you. This is really, I think, one of the best indie comic books I've read in a very, very long time. It's truly awesome. And this thing is, it knows what it wants to be. Not every book has to be like Long Halloween, people. It's not like, what are you looking for at that point?
They set out to make something action-packed and fun, and something you could let kids read, and you can.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's the thing is, you know, it's like going to a movie and being like, man, well, this superhero movie wasn't like The Dark Knight. Well, checks no, not any movie's really gonna be that in superhero realm. Okay, that's like a once in a lifetime thing. It's like going to a movie. No example, Spider-Man 2, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 2, not Far From Home. That's trash. And Amazing Spider-Man 2 is also trash. So I'll say this: if you go to a movie expecting the fucking masterpiece, whatever, you're not. You know, most things are just going to be like this. And these things can be, this kind of style can be good in its own way. It's fun, it's interactive, makes you feel good reading this. Honestly, I cannot wait for volume 2. Volume 2 drops, I am insta backing it ASAP.
Oh yeah.
And I think Gabe's talked about he's not going to really do the campaign format anymore, so you'll be able
No, he's
to
just
buy
doing
the book.
pre-orders.
Yeah, just pre-order and get the book when he ships it out, which is awesome, honestly. So did this book live up to my expectations as one of the best indie comic books released this year? Yeah, actually exceeded my expectations too. I was like, damn, this is pretty fucking good. I was like, damn, where is volume 2? I want to get into volume 2 right now. Kind of felt like, I won't say rush hour, but something along that line in a more of a different sense. But yeah, awesome book. Any other closing thoughts you want to have about the book before you head out? The video, actually?
Nope. The same thing I like to say about everything else. What Gabe is doing with the method with which he's going to put the books out, he's following in Eric July's footsteps and saying, this is a business now. He's got a website. That's his storefront where he sells. He gets all of that money when you buy it. Just like Eric July. This is the difference between what Gabe is doing, what Eric is doing, and what the rest of the Ethans and the rest of them are doing. They are independent creators, artists, writer, whatever. What Gabe is doing, what Eric is doing, they are independent businesses. One is a business, one is just a creator. The businesses, creators can go to them and get paid to do work on things that they enjoy, and some things that they like. Isn't what is it? Where's this one at? I lost it. The one Tyrus is actually drawn by Tyrus. Like he's the, how is he not a part of this book? How does he not like have some sort of ownership in it? And this is a thing that good business runners who understand creatives are doing. Like Horseman. That's like, that one's doing gangbusters right now for Rippaverse. But that is,
yeah, doing great.
Yeah, I think it's like, closing in on 6. But Chuck and Joe Bennett own that character. If for some reason shit went south with Eric July, it's still theirs. They just take it and go somewhere else with it if they want. If it was huge and doing crazy numbers and whatever, then maybe. But, as long as they're happy there with him, it's there with him. They still own the rights to that character, which is a really cool, smart thing to do. This is what Image did, but Image never had a cohesive universe, which is kind of yet another difference between Rippaverse and Image, is that Image just published books for people, and Rippaverse is building a cohesive universe with creator-owned characters. So that's an interesting dynamic. Most of it, if it's done well, will be behind the scenes, and everything will just kind of fit together.
I will say,
and I think that's what I'm hoping that's what Gabe is doing here, because that'll be interesting.
Yeah, the other thing I want to mention before we close out of the video, which is this. I know people in the indie comic scene, because I've had many interviews with them on my Iron Man podcast. Some of them, not all, some can appear, even though they won't say it, to be very jealous. I would say this: you might not like somebody, you might not think that they're all that great. But this thing is, I don't like certain people, and I still learn from them. You can learn from people you don't like, right? I would say for people to kind of read this book however you can get it, and look at what the writing is. Because there are indie comic books I've read, it's just their stories are not that interesting, right? The characters do not even feel like characters. It just feels like the writing is just so like, oh my god, blah blah blah, it's drawn out. This is perfectly paced dialogue and everything to keep your attention if you're reading an indie comic book. And if you're reading an indie comic book, the reason why you need to have good writing is because you need to keep people interested in your book to get to the next book, obviously, right? So I think Dean Cain and Gabe and Akeon did a great job here, and I can't wait for Dean Cain.
Yep.
All-American Lawman, a Volume 2 Hong Kong edition. So, yes, thank you guys for checking out this video. If you guys are returning viewers or new viewers, then please consider subscribing to the channel if you have not already. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and comment down below. Also, make sure you guys hit the notification bell. That way you guys can get notified on whenever I upload a brand new video. And thank you guys